and thank you to everyone who is here today. And it's a pleasure to be representing my good friend Sadiq Khan, and it's a shame that we can't do this in person. And can I just say thank you to you for your work over the last 5 years, working with the Mayor and his team at City Hall and being part of our decision-making process. And we hope you've seen a shift in change over the last 5 years and our ability to do that. When Sadiq was first elected back in 2016, no one could have predicted the challenges that our city faced. You know, the horrific fire at Grenfell Tower, a series of cowardly terrorist attacks, Brexit, constant government austerity, which looks set to continue, and now this awful pandemic, which has cost so many lives and livelihoods. And I know that's particularly affected the Gypsy Roma traveller community. But the vaccine does give us light at the end of a very dark tunnel. And it means we can afford to be more hopeful and optimistic and work for a better future after this virus. And the Mayor is working to ensure that our city is greener, better, healthier and a safer place for all to live after the pandemic than it was before, standing up for Londoners and fighting to build the better future that we all want and deserve, and where no community is left behind. And also for the values that we share and that London shares, one of fairness, equality and opportunity for all. His priority is jobs, 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 and doing everything possible to protect existing jobs and create as many new ones as possible. And over the last 5 years, Labour in power in London has delivered incredible results that I think we can all be proud of. We've reduced toxic air pollution by more than 1/3. We've started building more council homes than in any year since 1983. We've introduced the Hopper and TfL fares freeze, saving Londoners on average £200 a year. We've been tough on crime, but also tough on the causes of crime, putting 1,000 more police on the streets when Sadiq was elected, but also investing in our young people. We've stood up for London's values, whether it was against Brexit, Boris Johnson or Donald Trump. But there is so much more to do as we seek to recover from this terrible pandemic. And that's why we need London to win again and Labour to win again, because if Sadiq is re-elected, Labour will help to build a better city after this pandemic that works for everyone, and create more jobs and help Londoners retrain, fix the housing crisis by building record numbers of council homes, campaigning for rent controls. And that includes spending some of our affordable homes money on capital funding for the remodelling and refurbishment of traveller sites. Continue to both be tough on crime, on the causes of crime, putting more police on the streets, but also creating more opportunities for young Londoners. £45 million to date has gone into our Young Londoners programmes, and another 25 is promised for the next few years. And making London greener by tackling toxic air pollution and the climate emergency by making walking and cycling easier and safer, and rejecting a new era of austerity on public services that the Tories are going to implement at the worst possible time. But that brings me on to why we're here today, because despite being one of the wealthiest and most cosmopolitan cities in the world, London is unequal. Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities face specific challenges which have been outlined by your speakers today. That includes structural discrimination, issues with mental health, education and accommodation. And during this pandemic, we've seen the best of our communities, but it's also revealed some of the worst elements of our society, from the stark health inequalities to the structural prejudices that run deep and yet still cause so much harm today. And we know that Gypsy, Roma traveller communities are disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, not also in health terms, but in terms of accommodation, education and employment. And Sadiq has always stood up for Londoners, including those with insecure status. He's been a strong ally of the LGBTQ community and taken action to close City Hall's gender and ethnicity pay gaps. His team at City Hall meets regularly with a group of Gypsy, Roma and traveller sector organisations on a quarterly basis, and ensures that their voices are heard in decision making. He's arranged events to celebrate Gypsy, Roma and Traveller history in each of the past 3 years, and he spoke at the second City Hall Gypsy, Roma Traveller History Month in June 2019. He's also helped to introduce specific policy on Gypsy and traveller accommodation in his London plan. He's requiring London boroughs to meet Gypsy, Roma traveller accommodation needs, and is supporting better provision of suitable accommodation through his Affordable Homes programme. And we are currently piloting a negotiated stopping approach on GLA land. So just to finish, just like in 1945, this election is about how we respond to an historic crisis, and whether or not we strive to build back better for the sake of everyone who's lost their lives and livelihoods, worked on the front line, or suffered to keep us safe. And I'm convinced that it's possible to rebuild and breathe new life into our city as a fairer, safer and greener place, where our values are protected and cherished and celebrated. And I truly believe that Sadiq is the only candidate who can help deliver exactly that. But thank you for inviting me today, and I look forward to answering any questions, Tracy.